this is going to be a little bit different kind of video for today. So a viewer of this channel left me a comment a while back asking me if I could do a follow-up video on my Lanark 3 shoes from Crockett & Jones. These are the Lanark 3s in dark brown calf, and I've owned these for almost 5 years. It doesn't seem that long. It feels like just yesterday that I bought these in 2020. I wear them at least once a month because they are very comfortable, but they are the only pair of Crockett & Jones that I still own because a lot of their lasts are just not possible for me. But fortunately, this 378 last is very good for me. Think of this video as like a little detour, and don't worry, I'll be getting back to the usual reviews very soon, but I hope you enjoy it. So I'm just going to go through some simple steps that I take to maintain these shoes and repair some of the damage that's happened over the years. And some of you might be surprised how little maintenance they actually require. So let's get started. Of course, the first step is to remove the laces. Now I'm going to add some Big 4 to the entire upper because it's been several months since I've conditioned this shoe. These were made on the 378 last, which has a nicely snug heel, a snug waist, but a very wide ball. In fact, these were the widest pair in my entire collection. The only footwear that I had that was wider was the Parkhurst Clover Kudu Allen boot. So in other words, this is a very wide ball, which is great for me because it gives me plenty of room. But the thing to know about this last is that the instep is very steep. So if you have a lower volume foot or a low instep, it might not work out for you, but you can try and see for yourself. The lining on this shoe is also top notch. It's just very smooth and soft, and the quality control was executed perfectly. I think out of all the brands that I own, Crockett & Jones probably has the best quality on the lining, and the only other company that matches it would be Grant Stone maybe. But the quality of this leather just feels a little more luxurious to my feet. Now, I like this shoe so much that I found out in 2021, I think, that there was another version of this shoe, but it was called the Lanark 2. And it was in this sort of brighter red or chestnut color. And it had a leather sole instead of a day-night sole. But this model was just made specifically for this store in the Netherlands. So I contacted that store, but they didn't actually have an e-commerce on their website for US dollars, so it was kind of a hassle to send them the money. But I ended up passing on them, and I kind of regret it, especially now that Crockett & Jones are $200 or $300 more than they were a few years ago. But in the end, I just kind of felt like it was a little too redundant with the shoes that I already have. So I'll let that dry for a while. So now that the Big 4 conditioner has dried, I'm going to use a little bit of Saphir brown cream polish. This is in the dark brown color. This color matches the shoe very well because it can blend in and also cover up any sort of blemishes that have happened. It also smells really nice. This cream polish does not contain any wax, which is good for me because I actually do not want to add wax to this shoe because if you look at it, there's so many creases already in the upper, and adding wax would likely just get on the creases and make them more visible because the wax would crack. But another thing is that I find that this cream polish adds just enough shine that I'm satisfied with it. I don't really need more shine than what this cream polish can add. Which, speaking of blemishes, that's probably the only negative about this shoe, is that it tends to get easily blemished for some reason. So I do have to maintain it a little more often than some of my other shoes, but if that's really the worst thing about this shoe, it's not a big deal. Now I'm also adding some cream polish to the heel areas, especially because that's where a lot of the scrapes were. This will remove most of it. This will hide most of the damage that is. And I'm also going to add a little bit of cream polish to other areas of the upper that might need a little touch up. The dark brown calf leather is really nice in this shoe in that it will crease a lot. You'll notice there's a lot of creases, but they're all very fine creases. There's no big, ugly, loose grain looking creases with this leather. And honestly, for a shoe in this price range, I would expect that because you don't want to be paying for Crockett & Jones and getting a shoe where there's a lot of ugly creases. But another thing about this leather is that it just has a lot of natural highs and lows, and as you continue to wear it, you'll notice that it will patina in this way over time. So if you like a shoe with some highs and lows and color variation, then this is a very nice model. Another reason why this shoe creases so easily is because there's a lot of volume in the ball area, and the extra volume above the toes is part of the reason why it's so easy for it to crease. It's not a sign of a bad fit if you have a lot of creases. Some people believe that, but they're mistaken. It's not necessarily a bad sign if you have a lot of creases on a shoe. One other thing I like about Crockett & Jones is that even though they use a reverse welt, they create their shoes with a welt that's more tucked in around the upper, so it doesn't look as wide. And with this model, which has a very wide ball, I think it helps because it makes the shoe look a little bit more sleeker. Because if you already have a really wide ball like this, you probably don't want to make it look wider. So they trim down the welt and just tuck it in, and it almost looks like a flat welt from a distance, but it is a reverse welt. So now that the upper is drying from the cream polish, I'm going to add some edge dressing to the welt area. I'm going to try to fix some of that damage on the welt that's happened. So here I'm using Feebing's black edge dressing to try to restore some of the color on the welt. Black is actually more like a brown color if you're using it with just one layer. My only regret about buying this shoe is that they have a boot version of this shoe. It's in the same last and it looks exactly the same except it's a boot. I kind of wish I would have bought that instead because it was only about $100 more. But on the other hand, there are some advantages to owning a shoe. So I'm pretty content just to have this pair of shoes, and I don't have plans on buying the boot, but I don't remember what the name of the boot is, but I just know it's on the same last and the same leather. And now in 2024, the price of that boot has gone way up since 2020. But after a while, I changed my mind because I was afraid this was going to be too dark. And I have some Allen Edmonds chili edge dressing, which should be a perfect match for this welt. So now I'm just using the Allen Edmonds chili edge dressing to fix the damage that's happened along the welt. This should actually match it near perfectly because the welt edge is definitely like a chili color. Now I'll tell you a story. A couple of years ago, one of my friends bought a pair of Crockett & Jones shoes. They were also a plain toe butcher just like mine, but it was a different model. But this model also had a day-night sole just like mine. And He complained several times to me that they were very uncomfortable. He thought it was because of the day-night outsole, so he mailed them all the way back to England to Crockett and Jones, and he had them put on a leather sole. So once he received the shoes back, and he did some walking around in them, and he realized they were still very uncomfortable, so then he sold them off. And this is actually quite a common experience that a lot of people have, and I've had it too. I had a pair of Allen Edmonds Clark Street shoes. They had a day-night outsole and a pour-on insole, but for whatever reason, this shoe just felt like bricks. It just felt like I was walking on bricks. It was very uncomfortable. Since it was very early in my Goodyear welted shoe days, I assumed it was because of the day-night sole, because it was my first time experiencing day-night. So I also had Allen Edmonds put on a leather sole. It did not improve. The shoe was still very uncomfortable. So the point here is that if a shoe is uncomfortable when you put it on, even though it's the right size, it probably has more to do with the construction of the insole than the outsole. And if a shoe feels like you're walking on bricks, it's probably a problem with the insole and not the outsole. Now, there are times where a shoe might have a sole that's really squishy and you might want more support. Maybe you have a shoe or a boot with a very soft rubber sole and you want something like day-night or leather that's going to give you better support. In those kind of situations, I think a resole is very appropriate, and I've done that before. So there are situations where resoling makes a lot of sense, but I'm just pointing out that if a shoe feels really uncomfortable, it might not have anything to do with the outsole. Which, speaking of comfort, I have never once found this shoe uncomfortable. Even on day one when I first put these on, they were very comfortable. So for whatever reason, this shoe just worked out really well for me. And I had another pair of Crockett & Jones that were not anywhere near this comfortable, so I'm not sure why some shoes are like this. And I remember I used to think that these shoes were built like tanks and really stiff, and that was until I tried Grant Stone. And now I don't view Crockett & Jones as difficult at all to break in because I've tried Grant Stone. And as I said, these were extremely comfortable from day one. There was almost no break-in at all. I mean, I didn't feel any pain in my feet. It was just a little bit of stiffness. One other thing that I do is I use a glove or a towel to wipe away the excess edge dressing that's dripped down to the rubber sole. I don't like to leave the edge dressing on the day-night. It just looks a lot cleaner and better if you wipe it off the day-night sole. One other thing I want to mention is that I love Crockett & Jones insoles. They have this kind of fuzzy feel to them. They have the padded pour-on heel sock liner just like most companies, but where the ball area is, they have this nice fuzzy insole. It reminds me a lot of Alden. It's not exactly the same, but you just have to try it to know what I mean. And the other thing I really love about Crockett & Jones is that even though they use a wooden shank, they somehow achieve the same level of support as any other shoe that I have with a steel shank. I don't know if it's because they're using a higher quality wood or if it's some other reason with the construction. And I'm just amazed that they can make a wooden shank feel like a steel shank. So in other words, in terms of quality, I have the highest respect for Crockett and Jones as a brand. They just put excellent quality in their shoes. I can't really say enough about how good they are. But that's why even though their shoes are expensive, they're still doing well as a company. They still sell shoes because the quality is there. So then, when it's all done, I just give it a nice brush. So now it's pretty much done, and as you can see, the lines on the heel are mostly gone. And as you can see, most of the damage on the heel is hidden or gone. And the welt looks a lot better now. It looks almost like a new shoe. And then I just put the laces on, and now it looks much, much better than it did before. Well, I hope you got something useful out of this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon on the next video.